grow a church? I didn't expect that question from this person. So we talked about that. And I said, I don't mean this to sound cliche, but really it's God who grows the church. And I said, in saying that to you, I'm saying it because there are no magic formulas to church growth. And it truly is God who does that. But what I've learned and what I believe is that what we are called to, all of us, is we're called to pray, we're called to be faithful, we're called to work hard, and then we're called to trust God for the results. That's not an excuse. But we had a really interesting conversation, and the conversation continued into the next day at the reception. And he said, I think I'm going to come to your church. And I said, why is that? And he goes, because I've never been around so many people that just seem to really enjoy each other and are, in his words, are real people. And I always take that as a compliment because there's people who think that Christians are, not real people. They're kind of goofy and weird. And so that was a great. And I noticed Pastor Pete was deep in conversation with some people too. So we don't simply go to these places just to have fun. We go there to do evangelism. Right? Okay. Well, the format that we're going to use this today, just to give you these reports, and they're going to be brief, but we want to kind of take a look back over the months since we last met, which was at our annual meeting. Is that correct, Kurt Anderson? That was our last. We had one in May. Okay. Looking back and then looking forward, and I just want to say again, Pete Johnson alluded to this, but it's been a joy to work with our staff. I feel like we've got a really good thing going, and that isn't the case in a lot of churches and a lot of places. We talk openly, we talk honestly, we support one another, we have fun together, and so I'm really grateful for our staff. I'm grateful for our leadership team. Those of you that are here today, thank you for the time, for your commitment to serve, and this goes for all of our volunteers as well. Your commitment to serve, your creativity. You cause us to think differently about things. Every time we meet as a leadership team, the meetings don't go until midnight, but there's a lot of really good things that happen at those meetings. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm also really thankful for the financial commitment that many of you and many in our congregation have made to give regularly to the work, the ministries that we're involved in. Here we are at the end of August, and you'll hear from Roger that we actually, have money in the bank, and we have a positive balance in our account. That's not always the case, and it hasn't always been the case here either. And there's some reasons for that, but they're good. So thank you for that commitment as well. Personally, over the last few months, it was a joy to officiate my daughter's wedding out in Portland. I don't think my wife will ever go out to the Pacific Northwest again. First time she came to the U.S., I said, the Pacific Northwest is beautiful in the fall. Beautiful days, cool nights. It rained the entire time. She never saw Mount Rainier. She never saw the ocean. Terrible. Went to Portland. I said, Portland's great in the summer. It never gets warmer than about 85 degrees. It was supposed to be 102 the day my daughter got married. It was only 98. But there was a breeze. But it was a joy to be there and to reconnect with people and to celebrate that with her. And that was a very special time. And it was also a really special time to participate in Drew and Katie's wedding yesterday as well, and to see them finally, there were a lot of references to finally get married. They've been together for 10 years. I don't know if you guys knew that. They met in high school. And so, but it was great, and it was fun to see a lot of people there too. One thing that happened in the last few months, some of you were part of, is we had a meeting here with folks from Northbrook Covenant Church and folks from Deer Grove Covenant Church. And the purpose of the meeting was the result of Pete Showbloom, who's the interim at Deer Grove, and Jose Gonzalez, who's the pastor at Northbrook, and me, just talking about we're all three churches in transition. And might there be a way that we can support each other, communicate with one another, share ideas? So the purpose of the meeting was simply to bring folks together to talk about what's happening in the three churches and to see if there was some way we could support one another. And nothing major came out of that, but it was good to be together and just to hear about what's happening. We're all at different places. I mean, we're in transition, but different kinds of transition. And so that was a good meeting, and I just wanted to mention that to you because I didn't want the rumor to go around that there was a meeting about merging three churches. That wasn't the purpose of the meeting. It was simply to talk about, how are you navigating going forward, that kind of thing. I've really enjoyed working with Pastor Pete, and as we continue to work together on this transition. We've been talking, as I mentioned this morning, about the fall, about Advent, about Christmas. In September, we're going to start a preaching series on the parables of Jesus, and that's going to also be the topic of our Wednesday evening Bible study that will start in a few weeks. I just want to say a word about the Bible study that happens on Wednesday night. If you could be a part of that, I would really encourage you to come. It is wonderful. And the ideas that are shared, the insights that are shared, Tom, you can say amen, are wonderful. And it's also a place to support one another. So Wednesday nights at 6:30, starting the 21st of September, the parables of Jesus. And then the preaching series on that as well. I think that's about it for my report. The last thing I would say is it's been a difficult season. As you all know, there have been a lot of deaths in our church over the past months. The most recent with Warren has been really, really difficult too. He was such a great guy. And so I've been with the family, but it was fun to be at a wedding yesterday and celebrate that. And but it's sort of the stage we're in, and it's a privilege for me as a pastor to participate in the lives of people in every way, whether it's weddings, funerals, that kind of thing. So I would just say, please pray for the families. Please pray for me, for our staff as we kind of weather some of these things too. So that's it for my report. If you have any questions that I could answer. Okay. See a few of those moves.
It was a fun party. I like dancing. Dan likes dancing too. We like dancing together. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to look back to see where we've come, and then looking forward into the future a little bit. And I just give a little reports. So I'm starting year 2 here as of August 2nd. And yeah, all right. So the first year, under Kurt's mentorship and guidance, I created a couple goals for our community outreach team. And I have a lot of ideas, and so it's challenging to bring it to like 4 goals, but I managed to do it. And I'm working on year 2 goals to really focus in. So I have some priority areas. But year 1, we developed a community partnership intentionally with Northwest Compass. We've been going over there since December last year and making some really great connections. So that was our first goal is to develop this partnership, and just a lot of support from the community, our church community over there. A little more about that later, but the second goal was having 2 invite events to invite the community onto the church property. And we had Trunk and Treat and Defrost, 2 great successful outreach opportunities just to open up the church to the neighborhood, connect in a relational moment with the community. So those were the other 2 goals. The last goal, excuse me, the last goal, oh, I'm blanking on the last goal right now. Oh, it was the block party. So joining in a community event that's already happening in the community, not just saying, hey, come to where we are, but bringing the church into the community. And so that was actually the first thing I did when we got here. It was about a 2-week turnover. We had the first block party last July, and then we just had it this July. We had a great successful turnout. Once again, kids were lining up for the Plinko board nonstop for 4 hours on Friday night. So we connected with so many kids, so many families. We had a sign-up form, like an interest form, with a ton of different opportunities for people to say, yeah, I'm interested. I'd like more information about Bible study, Sunday morning worship, community events, youth ministry, confirmation. And so there were 100 people that scanned the code, and 33 people filled out the form. That's a pretty good turnout, 33 out of the 100 that we talked with. And so we're connecting with the community after the block party, inviting them to Adventure Camp next year. Some wanted information about bigger events that we do for the community, so we're inviting them to the Lake Day up at Covenant Harbor. And one of the strategic things that we're thinking with the children's ministry, we had Adventure Camp. So there's this continue the adventure continues. So we invited all of them up to a free weekend of winter camp. And so to preview the camp, we're inviting the Adventure Camp families to the Lake Day as well, coming up. So just some creative partnerships with the youth ministry, with reaching out to these families in the community with the love of Christ. And so those were our four goals for last year. And so we've met those. We're going to continue with the partnership with Northwest Compass. It's a flourishing ministry opportunity to serve our community. And getting into my second year ministry priorities, I'll first start. I have 4 ministry priorities: empowering the church, empowering teams, pastoral responsibility, pastoral responsibility, families with kids, and strengthening our community connections. So those are 4 ministry priority areas under Kurt's wisdom and influence. We've been meeting up as this second year has started, and I've been really praying and thinking about some priority areas where I can focus my outreach efforts on moving into the second year, taking some more pastoral responsibilities, such as preaching, worship, pastoral care, but then also continuing to focus on our community connections at the food pantry team, developing that team so that I can step out a little bit from going over there every Wednesday. We have a team of 5 people that is a food pantry team right now. We've got a couple of them in the room. Cindy, Jan, Carla, Lynn, and Kim Johnson, and myself. We have a 6-week rotation, so it's a real light leadership responsibility, but we're sharing that responsibility to go over there. And so as I step a little bit away from the food pantry, I have some more opportunity to continue to develop teams, to do more pastoral care, pastoral responsibilities, worship planning. So that's a little bit of a look into the second year. And I just wanted to focus on this last priority about with outreach, connecting with families with kids. There's three ideas there. There's these hospitality teams. I've been talking with Kim Johnson about helping develop some hospitality teams, and there's kind of a three-tiered idea with that. If you know the Swedish culture, there's a term called fika, and fika is coffee. And so one of our hospitality teams that we do every Sunday, but we're going to continue to do that, is our fika team, our coffee time. But really focusing on some intentionality, and this is not just a time to drink coffee, but really a time to connect. And so really encouraging our Sunday morning fika team to be looking out, to be connecting, caring for, and looking out for people on Sunday mornings. And also, I'm looking to develop and start up a welcome team on Sunday morning. We've got an amazing group of ushers who do a lot of responsibilities on Sunday morning. But we also want a strategic welcome team who's just there in complement with the ushers to really welcome people, to see new people, to bring people in and ask, to answer questions, to connect with new families who are coming on a Sunday morning, to really help them feel at home here. And so a welcome team is a big thing to care for new people coming to the church. And also within hospitality, let's give a big round of applause to our chefs today. Sarah and Tom and Christy and Kim Johnson helped with this as well. These events, the food that's set, the lemonade that's made, all the coffee, the tables, the chairs, everything. We have a team of people who are helping set that up. So Kim was reaching out to the team and inviting people to help participate in the hospitality moment where we can come and have a wonderful meeting and be together to hear about the ministry of the church. And I just want to say thanks once again to the hospitality team and you guys helping set up for today. So thank you. So those are the areas: pastoral responsibilities, strengthening community connections, families with kids, and then empowering teams, empowering the church for ministry. So that's a little bit about my personal vision for ministry, where I'm heading, and how I'm discerning community outreach for year 2. And so I'm really excited for that. There's some opportunity for the church within that. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone, and for you to encourage one another and those who aren't here today. There's a scripture that comes to my mind often, and it's Ephesians 2:10, and it says, "We are saved by grace, not by our own works, but because of what the Lord has done. And we are created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do." And so I think, I look out here and I see the work of God's hands. I always have to say this, whenever I bring up Ephesians 2, I say, turn to your neighbor and tell him, God did a pretty good job on you. Pretty good job on you. Right? That's right. You're a masterpiece. You're a masterpiece. And what that term in Ephesians, masterpiece, it actually means the work of God's hands. Imagine that. Like, you might feel like a Picasso, but let me tell you, you are so wonderful. And that's the truth. Like, we are God's creation. And He's preparing good works for us to do. And so I'm just thinking, whoa, that's pretty cool. like how we each are gifted and created unique in the image of God, and that God would prepare good works for us. And we are prepared. We have gifts for ministry. And so my encouragement is pray about that. How might God, in this new season, be calling us to use our gifts with the good things that He's preparing? So keep our eyes open, our ears open. Join in prayer. We have I'm going to be talking a lot about teams and empowering the church for ministry. So that might get redundant, just like the Kodiak cake box. You all know about the Kodiak cake box. You want to serve at Compass, you just sign up on it. I might just keep coming back with that because it's a priority to develop teams to empower the church for ministry. And so reaching new families, kids, even like with the kids ministry, like KIC, in the high school, middle school, confirmation, like these are such valuable ministries. And so my encouragement is just that. You have been created on purpose for a purpose. So just be prepared for what God might bring in this upcoming year. I will close. I was sent to the annual meeting in Kansas City, and I just wanted to give a little update on my time there. It was a wonderful time to reconnect with some of my old pastor colleagues and meet some new friends as well. I'd been gone for 3 years in Sweden, and so I hadn't really connected with that group that would meet annually. So it was a really wonderful time for reconnection, refreshment, and then just, the barks is getting to me. There's some bubbles in that one. Just to reconnect and just hear the state of the covenant, just a little report how things are going. Some really wonderful news about churches that are planted. I have a friend from Seminary, his name is Sten Carlson. His church has officially been adopted as a covenant church. He planted it about 5 years ago. I was there when that was made official. We prayed for them. Also, my former youth pastor, Steve Anderson, affectionately known as Super Steve, his church, another 5 years, has just been welcomed into the covenant as a church plant. So some really wonderful moments to just see God's goodness and see wonderful things that are happening within the covenant church. There's been some changes in leadership, some new people within global leadership, denominational leadership, and there were two actually, for the first time ever, elected, the Covenant Church has a female president, President Tammy Swanson Draheim. So that's a really exciting development. And I believe, Kurt, is she coming to Chicago?
Yep.
She's moving into Chicago.
She is.
She's here.
She is.
She's now.
She is now.
It's going to be great.
She'll whip things into shape.
We should get her to come up and preach.
No.
Great. I think that sounds like a fantastic idea. So some new leadership. It was really cool too. It's always special to see the ordination, candidates for ordination. There was an ordination service, and just seeing how God is continuing to equip, bless, and send out people into ministry. So just a wonderful thing. I had a few friends that were ordained. And then there were kind of two topics that were a little challenging. So there, on the ministerium side of things, there was a contested credentials moment. So there was a pastor in Minnesota, Micah. His credentials were maybe going to be removed. And the ministerium decided to not vote to pass that to the annual meeting. So what that means is the ministerium discerned that this should go back to the Board of Ordered Ministries. The Board of Ordered Ministries is the denominational, what is the Board of Ordered Ministries? Denominational care and discipline kind of component to the Covenant Church. So that was brought back to the Board of Ordered Ministries, and there were some questions about that at the annual meeting, and that, so as it sits right now, that is with the Board of Ordered Ministries. The second thing that was a little bit difficult was there was a lot of conversation regarding human sexuality and where we're at in the Covenant Church. It's been a contentious topic, and there's been a lot of conversation happening with that. There was no resolution, but President-elect Tammy came up to the stage because the church needs to talk about it. It needs to move forward. And so there was a lot of, we need like a decision in a year, or, there was like a lot of pressure kind of around that conversation. And how that resolved was President Tammy came up and said, we know this is really important, and she said she's going to address it. There might not be a resolution. It's not like necessarily her decision to make. We operate as a church body, but she's going to bring us along and lead us and have some productive conversations in regards to that. And so those are kind of two challenging highlights. There were some really blessed moments of that, but some also some challenging moments. And so just wanted to, as a representative at the meeting, just wanted to give you an update about that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Answer Pete.
Probably for you.
Oh, for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
If I've heard things correctly, at a couple points, there's been reference to transition. Is there a transition going on that I'm not aware of? What is the transition? Every church has got together, they're all going through transition. You're transitioning your position, you're doing different things. Is there a transition going on that I'm not aware of?
No, your understanding is correct.
Oh, sorry. So, you're aware of the transition we're talking about here with my position and
No.
how...
Oh,
Not at all.
okay. Okay. Well, when we
Be
brought,
respectful, not at all.
yeah, no. When we brought Pastor Pete on, we talked about this a lot a couple of years ago. The idea was to take a new approach to changing in leadership. And I don't know if this is something totally new or something that's been done elsewhere, and we're looking, it's some ideas from the denomination, some of the denominational leadership. And, the idea is we bring in this pastor of outreach and community, but also Kurt mentors him, and with the intention that after a 3-year period that there is a transition. Now there'll be opportunities for votes and decisions and all that.
This is great. You're educating me.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, and I'm sorry. We thought this was generally known, but it's been a little while since we've talked about this more directly. So that's the intention there. At the denominational level, we're talking, when we talk about transition with the other two churches, we're talking about just changes. Things are changing, and so Deer Grove is going through some issues, and Northbrook is going through some issues, and we have our issues, and just talking about the changes there. That's what we mean by transitions.
Right, and I would just say, the concept of churches getting together, a community, a smaller collection, that's a very...
Oh yeah, no, I didn't take that as a challenge. It was just more of a question, what's going on.
And then the concept of, the associate pastor moving up to become...
Yeah.
That's common in many Christian traditions.
Right.
I just didn't know that was what was going on here.
Yeah.
You've educated me, thank you.
No, I'm glad you asked the question. Because, sometimes when you're closer to this stuff and talking about it, you kind of assume that everybody knows about this and what's going on and all that. So it's good to be reminded.
And we're going to
So thank you.
transition you into a new role too. You're going to be the theologian in residence.
Congratulations,
You
Bill.
give me too much credit, I'm sure.
So we were going to have, we don't have a video report, right?
From Drew?
Drew? No.
You saw
You know-
the report from Drew. Sweaty Drew.
Yeah. He was going to do a video report. Drew has not been married before, so I don't think he knew exactly what entailed with.
But Nate,
Oh, is Nate going to be?
yes, Nate, where's Nate?
You just got a call.
Oh, Nate's on the phone right now. We can come back to him.
I'm on the phone with you right now.
Oh, he's on the phone with
Am I
you.
up?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
All right, Drew, I gotta go.
So, on to Nate.
All right, everyone. I'll give you an update on both aspects of my job, as well as Drew, and Grace, and Kick, and youth group, and whatnot. So this summer, we had a great summer. Adventure camp was awesome. We had tons of kids here, built good relationships. Like Pete said, we offered them all free winter camp in January up at Harvard. So hopefully getting families connected in that way. Also reaching out to all of them, inviting them next Sunday to kind of get their feet wet, what Coming to Harvard is. They know, so to speak, they might get in the lake. And so families can kind of start to understand what Coming to Harvard is, maybe be more comfortable sending their kids up with us in January. So that's the hope, which would be so awesome. Kick and middle school youth groups start on the 7th of September. And senior high youth group and confirmation start on the 11th, so 2 weeks from now. In regards to the summer, like I said, we had adventure camp, which was awesome. We had lift on Sunday nights for the senior high and junior high, which just ended last week at a pool party, thanks to Tom and Gail. It was really sweet. I was not there though. And junior high went to the island, which was a super great experience. We took 7 kids up.
Bring 7 back?
We brought 7 back. Barely dog.
Granddaughter almost couldn't make it back.
But we had a great time. A couple kids came with us who their families don't attend here. A couple kids from the neighborhood who parents emailed us that week, asked if they could go. So we got them up there, and by day 3, every kid was in love with the island. They wanted to, a little rough. They didn't love it too much. We had a huge thunderstorm the last night, which was kind of freaking me out because I was like, oh man, what if a tree falls? That's all I could think about for about an hour. And then I fell back asleep. But the kids all had a great time. It was a wonderful experience. And hopefully we're building off that momentum. We have fall retreat in almost a month, which seems insane. It feels like we just got back from the island, and then first weekend of October, we'll be going back up to Point for fall retreat with the junior hires. So, quick turnaround there. Hopefully building off the momentum from the island camp and going forward. Senior high youth group, we are going to keep rolling with the same. We have a retreat at Harbor in the fall with a couple other churches. We stayed in the Kishwaukee cabins, which I believe our church was involved with building or donating to. So they stay there with a couple other churches. It's a more intimate, laid-back retreat. So it's really sweet. Drew kind of was, he kind of got that going. And then the senior high will be going up to One Life in January, per usual. And so that's kind of our big trips for the year. Junior high will also be going to Harbor in the winter as well. And then intern-wise, Kaya Hogan, who was our intern last year, has committed to come back to be our intern this year. And so right now she is kind of like senior high intern, but I would like to fill that middle school intern role with another North Park undergrad if we can. So I'll be trying to pursue that as well, but if it doesn't work out, Kaya is more than willing and capable to kind of do both sides of that. Just talking to her last night, she's very excited. She was here last week, I think. So she's ready to get back going. We have a good group of volunteers coming back. Added a new volunteer for middle school, Sydney Callahan, which some of you may know. She's been a middle school leader for like 3 years. She's great. And I'm not sure with senior high. I know Drew's been looking to add a couple because some people have kind of transitioned out of it, like Bob Wilkinson and some long-term leaders like that. So Drew's looking to fill our leaders there. But in terms of the summer, really great summer. I think the highlight was adventure camp, just because we met so many new families and so many new kids, and the outreach from there is going to be huge. And so it's great to have that up and running. Kick meets every week now. Grace and Drew are spearheading that. Some of you are involved with that on a week-to-week basis. So it's going to be great to get that rolling. Hopefully build up the momentum of Adventure Camp. And so that's kind of the youth ministry update. For my tech job, we've been slowly upgrading upstairs, which you all might notice sometimes, but probably don't notice. Hopefully, is my hope that you don't notice when we upgrade things, because that means it's running smooth. But it doesn't always run smooth, but we're working on it, getting new equipment up there. We had a big proposal that budgeted that I came into, so we're going to upgrade that with Jeff's help to get our live streaming and our sound system to the best that we can and give a good experience to our viewers at home. And then my goal for the year with that is to run video throughout the church. So if you're in the nursery on a Sunday morning and you're hanging out with the kids, but you want to tune into the service, it'll just be on the TV. And you can watch the service, and down here for overflow seating and so on. So that's my goal for that, to have that up and running this year and kind of have our church all wired together.
One of the challenges with the streaming, just so everybody hears this, is our Wi-Fi system. Can you say something about that?
Yeah.
Because
So
we had some glitches.
we have our
Yeah.
last week, that was a network and equipment issue, I believe, and we're upgrading that. It's on the way, the equipment. But yes, our network Wi-Fi isn't the best, just with the company that we have. So we're looking into upgrading that, maybe getting a better situation with that to boost our network, so we don't have to worry about Wi-Fi dropping or whatnot. So yes, always looking to make the stream better. I understand it's frustrating when you're at home and there's no sound, or there's no video, or Pete's frozen up there in the middle of a sermon. I don't want that, and I know you all don't want that. So always working to make it the best for you all when you're not here, or if you're at home on vacation or whatever. So there's a update for that. I think that's all I have. Thank you all for the support for the youth ministry. It's great. Thank you all for volunteering with Kick and whatever you do. So yeah, we're gonna have a great year ahead of us.
Are there any questions for Nate?
You mentioned the glitches that occur.
Yes.
Are they getting resolved? There seems to be one glitch now, another one next week. Are they getting resolved? And if in fact the Wi-Fi is the issue, why don't we take care of it?
Yes, they are getting resolved. This week went seamlessly. And like I said, I've ordered the new equipment to replace the stuff that is glitching. It's a specific piece of equipment that is, I think, just wearing out, and we're going to replace that. And the Wi-Fi as well. I'm looking into 2 different companies to replace our current Wi-Fi, so there's no glitches. So yes.
My comment is, let's get it done. If it's money, let's do it. Because as you might expect, it's frustrating for somebody who's troubled with a computer anyway.
Yeah.
To suddenly find out it's not me, it's just no sound.
Right.
And I just would urge that whatever we need to do, get it done.
It is. It's getting done. I have the equipment to replace it and fix it. The Wi-Fi is a bit of a longer process because that's working with the company to get it done. But the things in my control of buying equipment and replacing it is in process as we speak. It's in the mail. And we just wait and we slap it in. So you're right, Bob. I do want to get it fixed. I understand it's frustrating. I don't like that you guys get frustrated, and I'm not blaming you. I understand when you get frustrated. So yes, getting resolved as we speak. Anyways.
We've actually had people come out and look at the Wi-Fi setup here and close the door and walk away. I mean, it's been literally wired together over the last 10 years. And we don't have guest Wi-Fi, right? It also creates issues with our printer, which is kind of weird. Maybe it sounds weird to some of you, but we can't do certain things with the printer because of the Wi-Fi. It was WOW, which isn't so wow. And now they sold out to somebody else. Astound. Yeah, astounding. So that's priority 1 because we need to get that. That causes a lot of I mean, there's days, honestly, when some of us can't even get online in our office, and they haven't been very helpful. So we're gonna get it done.
We're gonna change providers away from astounding, because it's not astounding us.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone else? Chairman?
Thank you, Nate. We also had Grace on the agenda. She's sick, so she was not able to participate today. But you've heard some of the stuff that she's doing with KIC and the school, Sunday school going into the fall. And we're thrilled to have her on board and doing the work for us. Next, financial report. Roger Lay's Jim was out of pocket today with some family commitments. So Roger is going to be doing all of our finances. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you. My job today is to look at, first I will look at the financial secretary report, which involves the money coming in, and then secondly it will be the treasurer's report, which is the money as it goes out. The numbers are on the finance secretary report sheet. I believe there are plenty of those on the table. It shows the July general fund money, which includes both the money that is given with the no ECC, no evangelical covenant church contribution stipulation, as well as all other general fund money that's lumped together as a single line in that report. If you are interested in just how that breaks down over the year, you will have, I'll tell you exactly where to find it. You'll have to look in the treasurer's report, which is the multi-page booklet on the table, and you will look on the back of the front of the second page. It says page 1, although I think it might be page 1 here. And that on the month-to-date column, the first column, it shows the cash receipts of $34,700, and then 2 lines down it shows the portion that was given with the no ECC stipulation. The third item, the 1007 item, is money that was given by, left to us by a former member who is now deceased. And the leadership team, as I understand it, and please correct me if I haven't got it quite right on this, a portion of that gift of $10,000 for this year is being added to the general fund income each month, and that explains the $833 that you see on the report. That is not included on the other financial secretary report, because that is only money that has been given by our parishioners week by week, month by month this year. As far as comparison goes, if you go down to about the middle of the page, you'll see that we are very close to last year's giving numbers. We are 3.35% below that. Yes, 3.35% is important. Is it significant? That's debatable, but we're close. And then farther down is the comparison of the general fund receipts to the budget, and there we're 9% under budget in our contribution. So that, of course, is something that could be considered a concern. As far as giving patterns go, however, with the current giving modes the way they are, it would be odd for us to have the same amount of income every month. Many people give weekly, a lot of people give monthly, some people give less frequently than monthly, but they give very generously. And there are even a few of our people that give once a year. And so that's why from time to time, as you look at our reports and as you see them in the newsletter, you see large fluctuations. That's because people give in different patterns as the year moves on. So yes, we need to see if we can work our way closer to budget as we go along through the year. Now I will become the treasurer for a moment. Jim provided a report, suggestions to talk about today. One of them includes the brochure that you have in front of you. It shows, on the first page, it shows that we began the year with a $22,000 of funds in the general fund, and that has diminished now over the first 7 months of the year to $17,000. Is that a concern? Well, that's a yes and no question. It's all in how you would look at that. It's there are some years where the general fund has been negative at this time of year, and there are some years that it's been much better. Lots of fluctuation in this thing. The important thing as I see it is that we do have a positive balance in the general fund at this time. Expenses are less than budget in certain areas if you go through and look at it carefully. So here's a summary. The cost of labor for people that work, both employees and contractors, are less. One of them is that there are some positions that have not been filled from time to time through the year. Currently we're fully staffed, but there have been some gaps in the staffing. The Christian education, VBS, Adventure Camp expenses were less than budgeted. Other Christian education budget items are simply spending less than was budgeted. Outreach ministries are spending less than was budgeted. And conference and denominational support expenses, which is a portion of the general fund, gifts that are received is less than budget due to the fact that we have fallen short of our budget by 10% at this point of the year. And so as a result, those items would also be 10% under what was budgeted for them in the first place. Any other questions that I can attempt to answer? I'll try to get the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. And just a couple comments coming off the budget report. Obviously, we have a lot of great programs that are going on. You've heard from Nate, you've heard from Pete, you've heard from Kurt, and then other staff who are doing work as well too. And it is all supported by our budget. And it's important that the members and others, regular attendees of the church, support our church on an ongoing basis. So encourage, thank you for those who do so on a regular basis, and encourage those who can to continue and upgrade their support as possible, so that we can keep these important programs going and preach God's word to our community through our words and through our service. So thank you on that. On another note, for 2023 budgeting, which we're starting to get into now, our planning for 2023, we'd like to get a better sense of what our resources are likely to be for 2023. So there will be outreach to all of you, not looking for pledges We're not looking to do that. It's more just, what are your intentions for 2023? You know, at this point, we're not going to, you know, send out, this is what you pledged every month or anything like that. It's more just, what are your intentions for 2023 so we can do some realistic budgeting for next year. So don't be surprised if you see some outreach along those lines. So with that, we would like to do ministry team moments now. As Pastor Pete talked about, we have a lot of great ministry teams and work that's ongoing out there. And we'd like to hear from some of the folks about some of the things that we as a church are doing for our church community and the community at large. So we'd like to start with Dale to be talking about some of our benevolent work.
Well, I think we are very, very much blessed by the caring nature of the members of our congregation. We have lots of people who are not on the diaconate who go out of their way to make phone calls, send cards, provide transportation to folks, go visiting. And this is an absolutely wonderful thing that our congregation does. And the diaconate is very pleased and thankful that you do that, because there's more needs out there than we can really handle in the manner that we would really like to handle. And one indication of that is we have a prayer list that we maintain, and right now we have about 50 people on that prayer list. But there's only 8 of us: Burge Applequist, Bobby and Steve Jackson, Marge Johnson, Novella Larson, Carol Leonard, Cynthia Soderholm, and myself. So we are all getting older on the diaconate, and we need to find some new younger people to come on board to get ready for the fact that some of us will be moving on. Mention the prayer list. Well, we also, part of congregational care is the diaconate, but it's also, we try to provide some corporate prayer, and that is really supplied by Share, Prayer, and Care, this bi-monthly group that comes together and prays for the church. And this has been led by Bill and Bill Hansen and Jan Anderson. They have been very, very faithful for several years in providing this. And it's a wonderful group. They are joined by a few other people. There is lots of room for more people to join them on their sessions on Sunday morning, every other Sunday morning at 9:15. So please keep that in mind. Another part of congregational care are new members. We have a new member team. Right now that's made up of the Jacksons and the Larsons. The team does not operate constantly. We only operate when we have the prospect of some new members coming on. And one of the nice things about the team concept that we're using, we can shape the teams to meet whatever it is that we're trying to get done. Because as we go from one inquiry class to another, the group of people changes, their needs change, the way that we can talk with them changes, and so consequently the members of the team may change in order to better facilitate the realities of what we're trying to do. We also have communion. The congregational care supports communion. The elements are prepared by Ross and Carla Peterson. They are supported, followed. If the Petersons can't do it, the Hellstrom family does it. And if the Hellstrom family can't do it, then Dale and Doris does it. Please don't pray on those Sundays when Doris and I have to do it. We say, where is this stuff? We also provide the ushers, not the ushers, but the serving teams. We have 4 serving teams that serve communion 3 times a year. We also have, well, we don't have, but we should have. We have part of congregational care is small group development. Right now we don't have a team for that. And we haven't had a team for several years. And we're really waiting and looking for God's leading in this area to give us the right group of people and the right timing to jump into that. I want to say that while the various Bible studies and now the book study with Subversive Witness that Pete is doing and Pastor Kurt is involved, while they are not small groups, they have some characteristics of a small group. And these Bible studies are absolutely wonderful.
Come on, Dale.
If you haven't participated, you really need to come. And one of the best reasons for coming is that you really don't have to participate. If you don't like to sit there and talk, you can just sit there and listen. And it is wonderful. We have, and the discussion is the great part of this, because you get all of these different viewpoints that are coming up. And we have such a rich group of people in our church who can come together and just share, and it's just absolutely much. So I urge you to please come out and support that. It's great, and the staff is doing a wonderful job of providing that. Well, the other thing that the diaconate provides are the support for the memorials. And as Pastor Kurt indicated a little while ago, this has been a difficult year with all of the deaths that have occurred. And it's tough on Pastor Kurt because he's officiating with these, but he also keeps really he's got a long list of people to provide pastoral visits to, and he does that in a very conscientious way month after month. I don't like to keep count of how many memorials we have had, but there's one number that has stuck in my head this year, because late winter, early spring, we had 3 memorials in 3 weeks. It was 1 memorial each week, and that really stuck in my head. Every time we have a memorial in this church, the diaconate comes together and starts planning the reception, but it's impossible for us to do it without the help of the congregation. And the congregation has been fantastic. Memorial after memorial after memorial to provide services, food, to come together, and so that we can have that time together. And so this week, don't be surprised if Carol Leonard calls you, sees if you can make a salad or some treat or something for Warren's memorial coming up this particular Saturday. And of course, you don't have to wait for Carol. If you would like to provide something, you can talk to Carol or myself, and we will work you into the plan. Any questions? Thank you.
And thank you again for everything you do, Dale. I mean, honestly, that is just, you're there when people really need you, at their hardest time. And so thank you. And the rest of the team. Next up, we are going to have Gail Reese talk about some of the work with the mission team.
Hi, my name is Gail Reese. I'm a new member of the church as well as of the mission team. And as such, I'm really blown away by the awesome work that this congregation is doing outside of America to help just people who really, really need it, who really need God in their lives. And I just think it's awesome. We had a meeting last Sunday, and I'll kind of run down some of the missionaries and mission teams that we have been supporting. One is Carolyn and Jeff Stoker from Cameroon. They are going to be retiring, and so the church did send them a check in the amount of $1,000 in recognition of their service to the mission. We need a little bit of clarification yet on this whole idea of retirement for them, but it's a work in progress. Oh, good. since this week. Kurt is on it. Okay. Good to know. And they are possibly being our guests in October. In February now. Oh, that's right. I did get an email on that. Never mind. Forget the October. Okay. We got more time to plan. That's good. That's good. It's always good. Kim and Joel Delp were here this summer, and they have their Santiago project and their Forever Flowers in Ecuador, and we are working on an upcoming trip, perhaps, to Ecuador in June. In addition, Dan and Oksana Johnson with the Christian Radio for Russia, they have had their issues, as you can imagine, with the whole Russia and Ukraine thing, but they are very much set on continuing their testimony, and they have requested another $100 a month for the rest of this year, and we have granted that. And God has been faithful and has continued people's ability to access the Christian radio still. So that's very encouraging. Say and Yabur in Liberia, we are still funding some of the Christian Leadership Training International. Evans and Karina Paul in Haiti. Are you just like really amazed at this list? It just keeps going on in a good way. We're working on that too. Haiti is very dangerous right now, and I don't know, they just had another setback last week of civil unrest. And so going there is cause for concern in some ways, but anyway, we're working on that one. For MENA, Middle East, North Africa, we just had Reverend Dr. Jack Serra here in the summer, and it was a pleasure to meet him. He would like us to come back and visit them. Well, we have so many opportunities. And also, Andy Larson from MENA is going to be scheduled here. I hear Kurt is working on that too. A note, Kurt Peterson, out of the chair of Serve Globally, is retiring at the end of August. And that's kind of a really brief rundown. One of the things that our mission team is doing is in making an intentional idea of pairing a specific contact with each ministry with a person or two on the committee. And so that is going to happen. And that's about all I have for now. I think, do you have any questions for me? Oh, that's so good. I like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks to all the members of the mission team and Carol's work over the years on leading the mission team. Carol Peterson, it's, as you say, we talk about the work in the church, in the world, and then we're going to be talking about the church in our community. So Pastor Pete's going to talk a little bit more about the outreach to the community as I understand it. So, oh, you don't need, oh, okay, he was on my list. I was going to say, I thought you had kind of covered it. I wasn't sure if there was something else, but see, I just do what I'm told. So, actually, let me just grab a couple things here. Are there any other, again, I guess you could say we've heard about what's been happening in the community. So, thank you again for everything that you do on that front here as well. Unless there's any questions about it, go ahead, Bill.
Are you moving on to other business?
We're moving on to the plans for the beginning of 2023. Sure. So this goes back to, actually, Bill, I'm glad you raised your hand, the issue that you raised before about transitions and what our original intentions were and all that. Along those lines, Pastor Kurt had been talking to some of our denominational leadership and folks across that he's had some contacts with, and been talking about our transitions here, and had the idea, and we as a leadership team really like this idea, and planning on this going forward, is now that when Pastor Pete's going to be hitting about the halfway mark of what we were talking about for the 3-year transition period, have him step up for several months and take on, basically, you want to call it sort of full leadership here. So beginning of the Advent period, Pastor Pete is going to be doing all the planning for Advent and Christmas. Pastor Kurt will still be here and serving as pastor, but it's serving pastor throughout, I shouldn't put it that way, but Pastor Pete's going to be taking the lead on planning all of that. And then beginning in mid-January, Pastor Kurt's going to take a step back, and Pastor Pete is going to be, for lack of a term, running the church as pastor here. So planning everything, doing all the other pastoral services. As we know, being a pastor is not just about Sunday mornings. There is a lot of work that is involved with being a pastor. I've really come to appreciate that the various times I've been on church council and leadership team. And so Pastor Kurt is still going to be around if certain things pop up, certain big issues or whatever that's maybe not appropriate for him. But as a general rule, Pastor Pete is going to be taking over from mid-January through basically the Lenten period, and then Pastor Kurt will be back for Easter. So this is a good chance for Pastor Pete to get a sense of what it would be like to be senior pastor at the church here, and for us to get a sense of Pastor Pete in that role as well for a set period of time. And it's part of this all intentional transition, thoughtful transition that we have going forward. So we want to let you folks know about that. If there's any questions that you may have, anything you want to add, Kurt? Or
no, I think, I liken it to student teaching.
Yeah.
And when some of you have been teachers, and you know that when you become a student teacher,
You observe, and then the head teacher sits in on you while you teach, and then at some point they turn over the class to you for the semester. And so this was actually proposed to me by a couple of people that know a lot more about churches than I do. I thought it was a silly idea at first until I talked to some people, and they said, yes, that's a great idea. I don't really consider it a sabbatical. I've never had a sabbatical. I don't know what we're going to do during that time. We will be around. We're not going to move to Europe or anything. One of my friends said, just make sure you tell the church, I'm not leaving. Pete, Johnson didn't kick me out. But this is very much an intentional part of this transition. It'll give Pete a great opportunity to lead without me being around in his back pocket all the time. And also give me an opportunity to kind of think through what happens a year and a half from then for my own ministry career. And, I don't plan to just retire and ride off into the sunset. And we probably won't be moving to Russia anytime soon. Although who knows? So anyway, I think it's going to be a really good thing and for everybody involved. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, leadership team was very enthusiastic about this. We thought this was a great idea. So are there any questions? But want to let people know well in advance. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question. There's support now for the lead pastor. So will Pete have support?
That's actually, it was on my notes. I forgot to mention that. We are,
sorry.
no.
So we don't know what we'll be doing. Will you be in Florida? Will you be in California?
we don't know.
Yeah.
No, but that's great because we were going to mention that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was,
I'm
no.
sorry.
I forgot to mention it, so I'm glad you brought it up. We are planning on having monthly meetings using the PRC to meet with Pastor Pete on a regular basis as we go forward with this, to make sure that he feels supported and we can talk through any sort of issues as they go forward. So, you know, we're not just, okay, here you go, you know, kind of thing. That's not our intention. Yeah.
Of course, that is the best way to learn. No, we didn't, and that was part of this too, that we really wanted a group of people to, because we have some goals and we have some things that he's gonna work on, and there's a group of people that are gonna, you know, meet with him and talk
Yep.
about them, and, you know, a place for you to talk as well.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, again, the entire idea here is to be intentional and thoughtful and constructive in moving forward rather than just, you know, oh, I'm gone, oh, new person comes in. And, yeah, let's figure out how to do this problem. Yeah. And part of that is the intentionality is make sure that he has the support during this time period as well. Absolutely. Yeah. No, and again, I'm glad you brought that up. It was on my notes, but it's my chicken scratch. Any other questions or comments? Julie?
So, I don't know, this might be better characterized as a concern.
Okay.
But I am so excited about all that Pastor Pete has planned and laid out for us in terms of outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And really the future of our church depends on the outreach. And so I'm wondering if this transition at the proposed workload might be too much, too soon.
Well, I will say one of the things that we've been talking about with Pastor Pete, and you know, he even alluded to it during some of his discussions earlier when he was giving his reports, is how do we keep the various programs and teams and activities ongoing and setting up the structure so that they can operate. I mean, at some point, you know, Pastor Kurt is going to be moving on. We're going to be with one pastor again. We need to be setting up the structures so that that can occur constructively. And so, you know, Pastor Pete is thinking intentionally about, like Compass, you know, setting up the leadership group there and making sure that it can move forward in a constructive way without him having to be hands-on all the time. And that's going to be true with some of the other projects as well. And so, you know, and then I think that's going to be some of the discussions with PRC too is, okay, how are we handling all of this? How are we balancing this? And that's part of the reason, again, why we're doing the student teaching. I really like the analogy, is to, okay, how do we learn to, and what do we need to do to make sure that these priorities and needs are balanced and actually are able to move forward? Do we need to set up more lay leadership? Do we need more hands-on from you? How do we balance all of this? That's something that we're going to be learning. I hear the concerns. Yeah.
Okay. Because in my mind, part of having more of that lay leadership really depends on more critical mass in terms of the people coming in. And so, you know, we have seen some growth, but at the same time, significant decline. So until we have that new critical mass, how are we going to be able to spread out the leadership that we have?
Yeah. And again, important points, and we'll have to have, you know, further discussions on that. Like I said, we've had initial discussions, and I know that's something that Pastor Pete has been working on to, again, ensure that the structures are there, that we're able to move forward on some of these things as he takes on more responsibilities. But we'll make sure that we continue to have those discussions, planning for that going into January. Yeah, go ahead.
Julie, that's a really good point. We're making an assumption here, and the assumption is that 2 years from now, Pete's being funded through the development fund, as is Nate. And to Bill's question at one point about sustainable ministry, we're assuming that in 2 years, the church will be able to support through the general fund one pastor and hopefully some staff people. Now that could change. You know, we could find a way to support, you know, through the general fund more than one staff person, but we're kind of assuming that when I'm gone, he's it. But I hear your concern too. It's like, well, but then we're 2 years from now, then I'm gone, and then it all falls on him anyway. And so, I don't know. That's been the challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't want to just. Well, so be honest with you. So, like, say 3 months before the 3-year period is up and Pete says, you know, I don't think this is really, I don't really want to do this. Well, that's a problem. Or the church, you know, because the church still needs to call him. I mean, ultimately the church will need to call him as their pastor, as your pastor. And that's a decision you're going to need to make too. So is some of this an evaluation time? It is for both of you. But I understand your concern too, is that we have some momentum and he's focused primarily on outreach and I'm kind of doing the other stuff. And then if I'm gone, then he's got the whole thing on his plate. But that's kind of what's going to happen 2 years from now.
So in some regard, this is almost an opportunity to try to, on a limited time frame, figure out how to balance that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Is it necessary for Pete to do everything after you're gone? Seems to me the first thing he has to do is replace himself.
Well, and I think that's, you know, part of what Kurt was talking about too. We also are going to be having to look at our resources. You know, and this is what we were getting at earlier with the budget too. If things start going into our general budget, could we replace them? I don't think we could at this point. Right now, it's all off the development fund, and we don't have a budget in our regular operating expenses to cover 2 pastors. Yeah. Bob.
I want to support Julie's concern, and it's a matter of timing. While the outreach ministries and the goals have been set and somewhat achieved, it has not, in my opinion, created the mass to support what we're trying to do. My question is timing.
Okay.
We now have 2 full-time pastors, and as I understand, what we will have is Pete as one, Kurt as partial, at least in terms of his role. I'll give you an illustration. Pete has got a whole planned program and somebody dies. That becomes a whole series of pastoral responsibilities which will divert him from the outreach ministry which is now undertaken. I guess what I'm saying is I urge the ministry team to carefully look at the timing as evidenced by at least some new people attending regularly and contributing regularly. Sounds crass, but that's what I mean.
We do have to pay bills.
The timing is the concern which Julie is raising, and I want to support the concern which she expressed.
Yeah. And
pass that to the leadership team to deal with it, which I do not believe is yet adequate in terms of time.
Okay. I would note that, again, Pastor Kurt is going to be around, so even like the scenario we raised is one that we were thinking about as well, so that he would be available if something unexpected like that did occur.
January, February,
Yeah.
are the 2 months involved? Or?
Yes, yeah, starting in mid-January.
And I would say, even though I wasn't in on any of these discussions, January and February is probably the lightest load on Pastor Pete as far as outreach goes. His events are centered around a different portion of the year, so if there was a particular time for him to get a little bit more of a load, it would be those 2 months, the way I see it anyway.
And that was some of our thought process as well, too.
But he's also doing admin. Or did I miss?
He's doing the planning for Advent, but Kurt will still be here.
We're doing it together. I mean,
Yeah.
because the way it's worked is I've pretty much done all of the worship planning, all of that. And so as part of his transition, I want him to begin to step into more of that. So I thought with Advent, he and I together, but really saying, okay, Pete, you kind of take the lead on this. You know, I'll preach, I'll obviously participate, and we'll interact with one another. But I thought it would be a good start for him, you know, to do that. So I mean, I'm not gone. We're doing this together, but.
No, I get that. I'm just thinking that Advent is also a prime opportunity for outreach.
Yeah.
Because people come to church at Christmas time.
Right.
And I am concerned about pulling back on outreach during the
I don't think that during Advent that you'll be pulling back. I mean, it's just essentially giving him more of a say in what we do during Advent, as opposed to, like, he's not going to be doing everything. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Okay. Bill?
I just have one concern. You seem to have a nice wife. I don't know her, but she seems to
You have a nice what?
a nice wife.
One per pastor.
Are you talking about my wife?
Well, you have a nice wife too.
Oh, about Ann. Yeah.
Pardon me for being unclear. Thank you for pointing that out. And you seem to have nice kids and whatnot. You know, I'm being quite sincere about all this. And my concern, having the privilege of being a member here for many years and knowing lots of people in ministry, is that we nurture and support that family, and that we don't burn out Pastor Pete, we don't burn out his family. And it can happen, and it has happened in this church. And so my concern is that we continue to nurture and support our pastors. That means you, and that means you. And so I think it's good that we talk about programs, it's good to talk about outreach. We also have points we need to talk about people, and I want to see that as a parish that we are supporting our pastors and their families. And that is way at the top in terms of our priorities. Done.
And I think that's part of the, call it the student teaching section. How does that impact, or it's student teaching approach, that how does that impact the families? How are we able to balance it? Or how is Pastor Pete able to balance everything?
And again, that's gonna be an ongoing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have young children, and, you know, that's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
thing. You know,
Absolutely.
Anne's busy in her own life, too.
Mhm. But that's why we're doing this student teaching.
Could I share one thing?
Of course.
I was thinking about this too, and Julie, thanks for pointing that out, because that's a really important thing to note. Because as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of ideas, and a lot of dreams and visions and plans. And what I took side story. I took a seminary writing course because my writing was all over the place. Like, I had 15 pages in my sermons. I had to take a writing class, actually, because my writing was so all over the place. So my writing professor told me I need to put a fence around my sheep. And so it's a really good concern, because I know that also in myself as a pastor. I love serving. I have a servant heart. I want to reach out and just like share the love of Jesus with the community. And yes, say yes, yes, yes. Saying no is a little hard sometimes. For me, yeah, we have. But one of the ministry, these 4 things I said right now are the priority areas, and I have a lot of goals within them. But year 2, I want to create achievable goals in regards to outreach. And so sometimes I get up and I like paint this like huge mural of like what it's going to be, and it might look really big. And that's some of my passion for what we're doing to outreach. But maybe a goal as these things are coming up, as we prayerfully discern this season, these are the priority areas. Now let's really think, what resources do we have? Let's pray about it. Let's start with prayer. Let's discern together, and then see where God is leading us within those. And so as we're moving forward, we can do that in a thoughtful, productive way. And the priority area that I'm really excited for is empowering the church. because that's a growing area for me. It's something that, as we're talking about sustainable ministry, it's not the Pete show. You know what I mean? It's not about me. It's about the church and what God has for us. Kind of back to that Ephesians 2 passage. Like, what does God have prepared for us to do? And so let's discern that. And one of the things that's nice about a season if Kurt's gone for a couple months is we get to practice that as a community and empower one another, and it gives me a chance within my leadership, pastoral leadership, to step into that a little more and plan and prepare for the future. So that's just kind of a few thoughts about the ministry areas and a little to that concern. But I do hear that too, and it resonates, and it kind of is like, oh, okay, let's think about this. And so thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? We will bring up all those issues during leadership team meetings and be intentional and thoughtful and try to make sure that everything is planned out as best we can to make sure that this is a constructive process here. So thank you. Are there other questions, comments on this issue? Okay, other business. Bill?
Not for today, everybody wants to go home. But going forward, I would please request we consider at our quarterly meetings having an update on our property. The conditions of our property.
Oh, okay.
What condition is it in? What do we need to do for it? We're talking personnel, we're talking people, hopefully being good to our pastors and their families, etc. But we do have a facility we need to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we come together every quarter, it's a request, just a request, that we have an update on how is our property doing and how are we doing in terms of taking care of it, so we don't get surprised.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bill. I made a note.
Some surprises can be very costly.
Yes, they can. Put it mildly. Any other business? Well, unless there's any other business, last item on the agenda was adjourned. So unless there's any objections, we will be adjourning. And thank you all for taking the time to stick around today and have these important discussions and hear about everything that we're doing and take some sandwiches. Please.
Good job.
And thanks to all the other members of the leadership team. That's Christy Child, Christy Lundblad, Jim Myers, Kurt Anderson, and the pastors, of course. This is a team effort, and it's wonderful serving with these folks, and I love it. So thank you all very much.
I did too. I got you.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too. I was looking at your cookie head overnight and that's
Oh yeah, we got that.
I know, I was like, everyone you this.
Thank you guys.
Has she told you that before? That sounds like Kay. Yeah, she is is and never was a kid. But you can see just is. So it says, it does mean that you have to be supposed to sign them to be in charge. And I didn't really understand the whole thing, actually. I feel like your own children, your side, and now it's like
Yeah, that is kind of funny.
I think there's hope for us as grandparents. And you're like, what are you talking about? No, it's something I saw. My dad, so it's like no one here what my dad was. They saw. Oh, yes. It's very she was confused who you were, but she yeah, no, but I talking about these last couple years. Because they're over there, because I thought that was too, like, like, what right? But it's nice to hear that there's others too, you know. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I had the time it was going to tell her, and then time passed, and that's busy. Yeah. Oh, I didn't say it, but I thought, and then it was just really nice to have that. Yeah. Sometimes you just I don't know. Yeah. That's very sweet. Yeah.